happy Wednesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Nichole's Notions, brought to you by Pick Your Stitch. This week we are going to talk about needles. We're going to talk about a few of the different types of needles and problems that you could be having with your sewing or your embroidery because you need to change your needle. If you don't remember the last time that you changed your needle, I'm here to remind you to go ahead and change your needle. You should be changing your needle every 6 to 8 hours of sewing. And yes, that's hard to keep track of, especially if you're going back and forth between projects. So every few bobbins, go ahead and give your needle a change. Don't wait for it to break, because if you're waiting for your needle to break, you're probably waiting too long to change your needle. Whenever you think that you're having a problem with your machine, the very first thing that you should do is try and change your needle. I would say about 75% of the time, your little problems that you think you're having and that might be a tension issue could be solved by just changing your needle. If you've changed your needle and you're still having the same problem, go ahead and change it again. Get another new needle, because just because you took a new needle out of the box doesn't mean that it's perfect. There could always be manufacturing problems, and you could just have a box of bad needles, or that second needle could have a burr on it. Just give it another try. Some signs that you need to change your needle are if you have thread shredding or breaking, if you have uneven or skipped stitches, if you have puckered or damaged fabric, or if your machine is making a popping sound when the needle is pushing through your fabric. If you have any of those problems, change your needle. Chances are good that your problems can be fixed with a new needle. And make sure you're using the correct needle type for the project you're working on, and that's what we're about to talk about. Deciding on what needle to use is not always about your fabric choice. You want to choose your needle based on your thread that you're using, the weight of your thread, so how thick your thread is or how thin your thread is. And the other half of your needle selection is going to be based on the fabric or substrate that you're working on. A good rule of thumb is that the diameter of the eye of your needle should be 40% larger than the diameter of your thread. So the finer your thread is, because listen, nobody wants to do that kind of math. The finer your thread is, the smaller you want the size of your needle to be, and the larger your thread is, the larger you want your needle eye to be. So we're not going to talk about every single kind of needle available on the market today. We're going to talk about the top few that you normally would use in your everyday sewing. Let's start with your denim needle. Now, the denim needles are available in a 70, 10, all the way up to a size 110, 18. Your denim needle has a medium ballpoint and reinforced blade that allows for you to sew through extra thick woven fabrics, denim, or thick quilts with reduced risk of needle breakage or skipped stitches. So your denim needle is going to be a stronger needle because you have to go through heavier fabrics. Your second needle we're going to talk about is your embroidery needle. This needle is available in sizes 75-11 all the way up to a 90-14. Your embroidery needle is going to have a larger eye, and that larger eye allows for finer threads, rayon threads, polyester threads. The larger eye allows more room for the thread to go through and less friction on the thread, so that you don't have to worry as much about your thread shredding or breaking while you're working on your project. Your jersey ballpoint needle is available in a size 70-10 all the way up to a 116. This is probably the most important needle change that we're going to talk about, because using a regular needle on any of your knit fabrics can really make a huge difference in your overall project. When you're first sewing through, you're not going to notice as big a difference. You're going to finish your project and you're going to be totally fine. It's going to look great. But after a few washings, what happens is that where your fabric is sewn together at the seam, your fabric will start to fray and fall apart. When you use a regular needle to sew through knit fabrics, the needle will break through the fibers of the fabric. It will rip them apart. Whereas if you use a ballpoint tip for your knit fabrics, it pushes those fibers out of the way. So it's not breaking the fibers down at all, which allows your fabric to stay intact and last much, much longer. Your Microtex needle is available in a 60, 8 all the way up to a 110/18. Your Microtex needle is a really great needle if you're just looking for a general all-purpose needle to use because it has a very slim, very sharp point. And the reason for that is that it's specially designed to be used on microfiber fabrics, silk fabrics, anything with any kind of coating on it. That thin, sharp point allows you to create really beautiful top stitching, and when you really need your piecing on your quilts to be super straight and super precise, that needle, because of that sharp point, is going to give you that straight seam. Your top stitch needle is available in size 80/12 up to a size 116. And your top stitch needles have an extra large, extra long eye on them, which make them perfect for a metallic thread, a thicker thread. Think about if you're top stitching on denim. That's a really thick thread, so you're going to need an extra large eye. If you want to use multiple threads on one needle, the top stitch needle is perfect for that instance. Another great time to use your top stitch needle is if you have some thread that is older and if you don't trust your thread to hold your seam together necessarily, a top stitch is just for decoration. A top stitch isn't important to the construction of your project, so you can use that top stitch needle with an older thread that you don't want to get rid of. It's great for that because it will allow less friction on the needle as well because of the larger eye. The last needle we're going to talk about is your universal needle. If you are somebody who does not sew obsessively like some of us are, then you will benefit from a universal needle. It has a slightly rounded tip, so it will work well for many different fabrics. If you're somebody who just mends clothes on occasion, hems up some curtains, if you're somebody who just breaks out your sewing machine every now and then a couple of times a year, the universal needle will be great for you. So what all this basically means is that when you're thinking about what kind of needle you should use, you need to make sure, once again, that you're choosing your needle size based on your type of thread and your type of needle based on the fabric that you're using. And now we have a special message from our sponsor.
Hi, Nicole.
Hey, Amy, what's up?
All right, so I have a question that I get asked often. The needle size here says it's an 80/12. What's the difference between those? How would I know?
Well, since we don't have Mary Lou around anymore, I don't know. Why don't you tell us?
Okay, what Mary Lou taught me is the 80 is a metric size, and the 12 is used in the United States. So 80 and 12, most of us just see the 80 on our
or the 12
or the 12. Yeah, on the packaging. So the 80 is worldwide, the 12 is US. Another thing, Nicole gave you a lot of great information, but if you come in the shop, Schmetz has given me these booklets for free that talk about all the different needles, a lot of information about the parts of a needle. For example, did you know if the colors that are on the needle will tell you what type of needle it is and what size the needle is? So there's a lot of good information in here, and
love that thing never leaves my purse.
Yeah, so come into the shop. These are free, and thank you, Nicole. And I would just want to say Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
That was my joke. We'll see you next week for another episode of Nicole's Notions. Happy New Year.